Oh, hi there. The Pope of pop cinema, the spiritual godfather of New Hollywood, the king of cult, Roger Corman is known by many names. Throughout his 70-year career, Corman produced or directed over 500 low-budget films. He became known for hiring inexperienced filmmakers and actors who were eager to break into the industry. He's credited with helping launch the careers of Dennis Hopper, William Shatner, Sandra Bullock, Jack Nicholson, and Robert De Niro, along with mentoring some of the biggest directors in the world like Francis Ford Coppola, James Cameron, Ron Howard, and Martin Scorsese. Francis Ford Coppola even gave him a cameo in The Godfather 2. So what's the point of all this? Well, I think I've established that Roger Corman is one of the most important filmmakers of his era, and certainly one of the most prolific. In all of his time in the industry, Corman only produced one single film that went unreleased. One film that was completely finished, the final edit locked in, press tours completed, trailers made, that was still kept from the public. A movie that, by all accounts, should be lost media, but instead is a cult classic, and one of the greatest oddities in the history of superhero cinema. This film is 1994's The Fantastic Four. As you might expect, the story of 1994's The Fantastic Four is wild. Right out of film school, in 1978, Bernd Eichinger bought the assets of a failing German production company, Constantin Films. Under his leadership, Constantin would become one of the most successful German film studios of all time. And maybe one of Eichinger's best business decisions along the way was his foresight to purchase the film rights to the Fantastic Four for just $250,000 in the 80s. Comic book movies had yet to reach the cultural zeitgeist. Only Superman had successful movies at the time, but they were some of the most expensive to make, and each made less money than the last. So Eichinger had a very difficult time funding his Fantastic Four movie. By the early 90s, his contract with Marvel was set to expire. The movie had to be in active development by December 31st, 1992, and he was still at square one. He tried to get an extension on the deadline, but they wouldn't budge. So Eichinger came up with a dastardly plan. Just months before the rights were set to expire, in September of 1992, he teamed up with low-budget filmmaker Roger Corman to produce the movie for just $1 million. About 30 to 40 million less than he would need to actually make a proper adaptation at the time. With just 3 days left before the contract expired, filming on The Fantastic Four began on December 28th, 1992, with music video specialist Oli Saison as director. The entire thing was slapdash together in just 3 weeks. The movie starts with Reed Richards and Victor Von Doom studying together in college. They decide to run an experiment on a passing comet called Colossus. The experiment goes haywire, and Victor is killed in the process. But when taken to the morgue, it's revealed that he is still alive and being experimented on. What the experiments were, why they were conducted, or who's behind them is never established. At this point, Reed Richards is living with his best friend, Ben Grimm, in a boarding house owned by the mother of Susan and Johnny Storm. So in the comics, Reed Richards and Susan Storm are married. For some reason in the 80s, the comics gave them this uncomfortable age gap that's shown in this movie. Like, they don't get married until Susan is an adult, but the fact that he meets her as a child is just gross. The age difference was changed at some point, but when this movie was made, it was canon. 10 years after the experiment, the same comet is passing over Earth. Reed, Ben, Susan, and Johnny are set to fly off on an experimental spacecraft.
Look at you. The Fantastic Four.
All the while, the still alive Victor Von Doom, now going by Dr. Doom, is attempting to sabotage their trip as revenge for his accident, when his goal is unwittingly accomplished by the Jeweler, a low-level criminal who steals a key component of the ship, a giant diamond. I'm pretty sure the Jeweler is a stand-in for the Mole Man, who I'm guessing they didn't have the rights to use. This missing piece of the ship leaves the four vulnerable to cosmic rays, and soon after launch, the ship explodes. Much to the displeasure of Dr. Doom, they all somehow survive and are imbued with superhuman powers. After the crash landing, a group of thugs posing as Marines takes the four to Dr. Doom's lair. They eventually escape and regroup at the Baxter Building. Things get heated and Ben storms off, feeling like an outcast. He soon joins a group of vagrants who offer him a place to fit in, bringing Ben to the jeweler's lair. The jeweler reveals his plan all along was to use the stolen diamond to propose to Alicia Masters, a woman who Ben is infatuated with. Unbeknownst to anyone else, Doom is in hot pursuit of the diamond, bursting into the jeweler's lair, stealing the diamond, and kidnapping Alicia. She convinces Ben to let Doom take her, not wanting him to risk his life for her, and confessing her love. This causes Ben to revert back to his human form. This is something that he used to be able to do in the comics, but quickly turns back into the Thing after feeling powerless. Ben returns to the gang, and Doom reveals his plan to use the diamond to power a laser cannon, intent on destroying New York. The four team up in homemade costumes to confront Dr. Doom and stop his evil plan. During the battle, Doom manages to fire his laser, but is seemingly defeated, falling into a foggy void, though his sentient gauntlet remains. Johnny Storm now races to intercept the laser, managing to deflect it away from the city into space. The movie ends with the Fantastic Four officially becoming a crime-fighting team, and Susan and Reed get married, concluding with the best practical effect ever put to screen. Pure cinema, no notes. Honestly, after watching this movie a few times, it is much better than I thought it would be. Structurally, the script is solid. The second act drags a little bit and the third is a little rushed, but each scene is necessary for the next to happen, which is something I cannot say for the rest of the Fantastic Four movies. And the casting is kind of perfect. Jay Underwood, who plays Johnny Storm, and Alex Hyde-White, who plays Reed Richards in particular, really stand out. Rebecca Stabb brings a really dignified Susan Storm to life, and Joseph Culp's Dr. Doom is so perfectly over the top. Everything bad about the movie is really just a symptom of a low budget. The script could use a couple more passes, the effects are tragic, even for the 90s. Costumes and sets are cheap, maybe a couple of the actors could have been recast with more experienced performers, or just have been afforded additional takes to get things right. The score is surprisingly good too. It was composed by brothers David and Eric Wurst, who personally contributed their own money to fund a 48-piece orchestra. Their investment shows. The score is charming, fun, like it's not afraid to be corny, whimsical, or over the top. Some sections sound straight out of a Saturday morning cartoon, and the entire movie as a whole just isn't afraid to be cheesy. There's a sincerity that's taken straight from the comics that the movies have always seemed embarrassed by, like a kind of saccharine sweet quality they're too afraid to embrace, which is probably why the best Fantastic Four movie is a kid's film, not called The Fantastic Four. What I really cannot get over though is how a unreleased B movie from the 90s is not the worst Fantastic Four movie. That easily goes to 2015's Fant Four Stick.
It's fantastic.
Say that again?
I would even entertain arguments that the 90s Fantastic Four is better than Rise of the Silver Surfer. So why was this movie never released? What happened? And why are we looking at it right now? Well, in the summer of '93, a trailer for the Fantastic Four was shown in theaters. Members of the cast were promoting the film at their own expense, having to hire their own publicists. They even managed to get the movie featured as the cover story of Film Threat magazine. And after a year of post-production and press tours, the movie was finally set to premiere at the Mall of America in Bloomington, Minnesota on January 14th, 1994. But this screening never happened. Because all of a sudden, the actors began receiving cease and desist orders, demanding they stop all promotion, and all copies of the movie, along with the film negatives, were confiscated. It's now widely believed that 1994's Fantastic Four was never meant to be released. The whole thing was made so Eichinger could retain the film rights to the franchise. Whether or not this is true, what we do know is that the movie was squashed by the future head of Marvel Studios, Avi Arad. Avi recounts a visit to Puerto Rico around the time the Fantastic Four movie was being promoted. He was walking around with a Fantastic Four t-shirt on when a passerby struck up a conversation with him, asking if Avi was excited about the upcoming movie. Unaware of Eichinger's new movie, he had to look into the project and became concerned. Fearing that a cheap production could weaken the brand, he bought the movie from Eichinger for a couple $1 million. Having never watched it himself, he ordered all prints destroyed, never to be released. But a copy survived. And how? We do not know. We do not know how this movie survived. In the 2015 documentary, Doomed, The Untold Story of Roger Corman's The Fantastic Four, there's an interview with the film's director, Oli Saison, who believes that the movie was saved by a rogue employee at a business called Lightning Dubs. Somehow, Saison had his own copy of the Fantastic Four movie that he never elaborates on, but says that he went to Lightning Dubs, a company that specializes in dubbing for TV networks, and asked if they could make a couple copies of his movie. He thinks that an employee at the store must have been a comic fan, and realizing what he had in his hand, made additional copies. These copies were then given out, inadvertently turning this suppressed film into a cult classic. Now, personally, I think Ole Saison made all the copies. I think he gave them to his friends, family, colleagues, and secretly promoted it himself. He obviously can't admit this because it's illegal, but I really think he did it. I think it's much more likely than a rogue employee. Like, I want to believe there was just some underpaid guy at a local store who saved the Fantastic Four's first big screen appearance from becoming lost media. But I think if we apply Occam's razor, it's Saison. He did it himself. If you don't believe me, watch the documentary for yourself. It's on Amazon, and I'll link it in the description. I don't know, there's something about the way he tells the story that gives me the feeling he's not giving us the complete picture. And the company who made the documentary is selling incredibly high quality copies of the film, and I really think this is just a better copy of Saison's original version, and now we've just gotten a better capture of it. Maybe the most unbelievable thing of this whole story is that Eichinger's plan totally worked. By making 1994's Fantastic Four, he retained the film rights to the characters, allowing him to co-produce the next two big-budget Fantastic Four movies in the 2000s, and he probably made a lot of money off them. Even though he passed in 2011, Constantine Films still produced 2015's Fan4stick, which probably lost everyone a lot of money. Having rewatched all these movies, I cannot help but think that Avi Arad's fear that the Fantastic Four brand would be damaged would come true. I like Tim Story's two Fantastic Four movies, not because they're good, they're actually kind of bad, but because they're stupid fun.
It's clobbering time! It's catchy, right?
Then there's Fan4stick, which is probably the worst comic book movie ever made. The Fantastic Four's credibility was damaged more by these films than anything Roger Corman could cook up. So I honestly wanted to watch 1994's The Fantastic Four because with the Fantastic Four finally in the hands of Marvel and the new movie coming up, we are eventually going to see the Council of Reeds. If you don't know what that is, it's an interdimensional group of Reed Richard variants from across the multiverse who team up to, quote, solve everything. If you've seen Rick and Morty, this is where they get the idea for the Council of Ricks. Since the MCU is leaning into iterations of characters from older movies, I'm hoping there is some kind of reference to Roger Corman's Fantastic Four. Ideally, bringing back the characters for cameos or supporting roles, kind of like what they did with Blade, Elektra, and Gambit in Deadpool and Wolverine, since all the core actors from the 94 version are still alive and still mostly active. My dream is that the MCU eventually includes the Council of Reeds, and if it does, there need to be 3 Reed Richards at the head of the table. Ian Grufford from the 2000s movies, Miles Teller from the 2015 film, and the oldest of them all, Alex Hyde-White from 1994's unreleased The Fantastic Four. I will weep in theaters if this happens. I mean, they included Channing Tatum's Gambit from a movie that was never even filmed, so taking characters out of a film that was just unreleased doesn't seem out of the realm of possibility, no matter how unlikely it may be. It doesn't need to be the next movie, or even the one after that. But eventually, I think this needs to happen. This would right all the wrongs this movie has been given. To be recognized as part of the world's largest film franchise would be the perfect way to conclude the legend of Roger Corman's The Fantastic Four. Thank you so much for watching. Please like the video and subscribe to the channel. If this does happen in the movie, I'll see you back here in the comments. A big thanks to everyone who supports me on patreon.com/allthingslost, including Miss Dana, Vinny Cataldo, and Can You Say Rocco Mafleur. This is Mike with All Things Lost. I'll see you soon.